In remarks later today, President Joe Biden is expected to announce the full withdrawal of U.S. troops from Afghanistan. Officials say the deadline is September 11th of this year, which is the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. This would bring an end to the nation's longest war. Senior administration officials say about 2,500 U.S. troops are currently serving in Afghanistan. The drawdown will begin before the May 1st deadline initially agreed to by the Trump administration. With more on this expected announcement, NBC News White House correspondent Mike Memoli joins us from Washington, and NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel is in London. Good morning to both of you. Mike, let's begin with the president's planned remarks today. How did he come to this decision, and what will be his message to Americans and to the world?
Well, Joe, this comes after a 3-month review within the Biden administration about this decision. And I thought the New York Times put it best, that this is Joe Biden putting his stamp on a policy debate that he has long debated, but never controlled now, of course, until he was president. He was chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee in 2001 when President Bush launched the military action in Afghanistan. He was vice president in the Obama administration when a drawdown, but also a surge was hotly debated within that administration. And now he's acting, as you mentioned, on that May 1st deadline that had been set by the Trump administration. Biden officials explaining that this president came to the conclusion that there was never going to be a military solution for the problems plaguing Afghanistan, and that, as one official put it, it is now 2021, not 2001, and it's time to focus on the military threats facing this country now.
Richard, you've spent a lot of time on the ground in Afghanistan. Can you help us put some greater context in this for us? How might this withdrawal of troops affect the region?
Well, Afghanistan could collapse into civil war. That is the danger. The Afghan government has proven to be quite weak over the last several decades. It has never really been able to dominate the country. The Taliban has been resurgent. So there is a risk that the Taliban could have more military gains, and that once again the country could become a safe haven, a sanctuary for terrorism. The Taliban is entered a deal with the United States. It entered a deal with the Trump administration, and according to that deal, U.S. troops were supposed to leave in a couple of weeks, May 1st. So what we're really seeing now is President Biden extending that deadline so they have a more orderly withdrawal. But what they are going to be leaving behind after withdrawal, I don't want to say it's an open question. It's probably an answerable question. It's probably going to be a lot of chaos.
Mike, this has been met with mixed reaction from lawmakers. That reaction doesn't strictly follow party lines. What are you hearing in Washington?
Yeah, it's particularly interesting to see the divide among Republicans. You have traditional hawks like James Inhofe, who's the top Republican on the Armed Services Committee, opposing this decision, but more libertarian lawmakers like Mike Lee of Utah supporting it. Take a listen to some of that reaction just yesterday.
The whole idea it's ludicrous. First of all, it's not condition-based. Secondly, you don't want to announce to everyone when you're going to do these things. Thirdly, it seems to me the date that was chosen was the 20th anniversary, so it's politically driven.
I'm glad to see us moving out. I've got a daughter who was an infant when that war started. She's now halfway through college. I want to see us get out of there, and a timely withdrawal seems like a good thing to me.
Democrats mostly lining up behind the president. One exception, Jeanne Shaheen, Democrat of New Hampshire, who expressed concern about the consequences for women in Afghanistan.
Richard, as you mentioned, there are worries about stability in and around Afghanistan, but also worries about what this could mean for the U.S. How might this move impact national security?
Well, it calls into question U.S. commitment, U.S. resolve. Now, the U.S. has been there for 20 years, and the U.S. fought hard and spent about $1 trillion. It's very hard to know when numbers get that big and there's so many contractors involved, but generally it's about 2,400 troops that were lost and roughly $1 trillion spent. So the U.S. had a commitment, but when history is written, certainly this is the way the Taliban is presenting it to the world. The Taliban will say first it defeated the British Empire, and then it kicked out the Russians, and now after 20 years of fighting and resolve on their behalf, they have pushed out the Americans. So 20 years, some would say at some stage they had to call it quits and move on, but it will, certainly the Taliban will spin it that it is once again defeated a superpower. And I think that message probably will resonate in many parts of the world.
Mike, while we have you, I want to ask, President Biden has now accepted that invitation to address a joint session of Congress in a non-inauguration year. We might call that the State of the Union. What more do we know about that?
Yeah, we've been waiting for this date for some time. Speaker Pelosi extending that invitation for April 28th, an important milestone. It's on the eve of the president's 100th day in office. Among the questions still remaining, what will the chamber look like because of COVID protocols? But as the White House was considering the range of options, they insisted on having him go to that chamber for what will be a historic picture. The president speaking before the first woman Speaker of the House, and of course, the first woman Vice President of the United States.
Mike, Memoli, Richard Engel, appreciate your reporting on this important story this morning. Thank you so much.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.